This podcast is brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world, and is also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage and microgrid solutions. And Kempower, the reliable, quick, and scalable EV charging solutions for everyone and everywhere. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Great to have you here today. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for plugging in for another episode where we cover all things electric vehicle and anything relevant to that discussion. There are some automakers that are clearly ahead of others, and especially those that are new to the EV offering space, and Ford is certainly one of them. And we've seen Ford have some ups and downs, that's for sure. So I thought, let's do a little bit of an update on Ford, see where they're at today and what you might or might not know about in terms of what's been going on with their business decisions and how they've been playing out for them. As a refresher, Ford has experienced some needs to delay or divest a little bit from their EV business plans. They delayed $12 billion in EV investments in October of last year, 2023, which is a ton of money to delay. But they do say it's just delays. They have noted that sale growth was lower than and slower than they expected. There's also delays in many investments, including a battery manufacturing plant in Kentucky in collaboration with SK Batteries Technologies, which, they have a pretty strong foothold, that company, in the battery manufacturing space. And they also say, Ford, that they are not cutting the spending, only delaying it. Like I said, they've stressed that. And, sometimes it's fine to delay that spending. I don't think it's a huge factor in whether or not they're going to be successful, as long as they make sure to put that investment back into it where they think is the smart spot. Now, let's jump into some details about their individual vehicles that they offer. So the F-150 Lightning is of course, Ford F-150 Lightning electric vehicle truck. It's very traditionally truck-like, especially compared to the other trucks that are out there. The Rivian is also very truck-like, but it's a fully electric brand that's coming from. The Cybertruck is, a beast of its own. So the Ford F-150 Lightning is very competitive with other EV trucks for range, charging, towing, and the utility of the truck. It's really designed to be used as we use trucks. We and I think Ford also say that it is a truck that's been electrified rather than an electric truck. It has many trim levels ranging from $55,000 USD, of course, to over $100,000 based on what your needs are, what your budget is, and what you're going for with your Lightning. In December of last year, 2023, they announced new production numbers, really, and new projections that note that if you look at the numbers, it's about 50%, 47% different than what they had originally announced as their production goals. So you could say that their production was cut in half based on what they expected to do, and also what they're expecting to do going forward based on those first announcements. So it's reducing from around over 3,000 Lightnings produced a week to around 1,500, 1,600 a week instead. And they say that they're aiming to match production with customer demand. So I think it's a trend that a lot of automakers were putting out high numbers, lofty goals, and now they are bringing them down to match customer demand. I think this has a lot to do with the options on the market and the price points of EVs, and then all the other influential factors when it comes from either going fully electric or just adopting an electric truck into your life. There's a lot of things to consider. So they met about half of what they had projected in 2023 for production. And then we've also seen these delays in investments. In January of this year, January 19th, they announced that they are scaling back production officially. So they're taking advantage of their manufacturing flexibility, they said. This is a quote, to offer customers choices while balancing our growth and profitability. Business talk for we're re-examining things or making sure that we're not going to go under and that we're spending our money correctly. It's also important to note, how do these divestments or delays in investing and just re-strategization affect the people at Ford? So this affects about 1,400 employees According to Ford, 700 were transferred to the Michigan assembly plant for the Bronco and Ranger production. Other folks have been placed at the Rogue complex or other Southeast Michigan facilities, and some will use the special retirement incentive program that came from the new United Auto Workers Union contract. So there's a few dozen, the UAW contract, there's a few dozen impacted at component plants as well. So we think that if you're going to grow a whole side of the business model for electric, that's a lot of new people to put into your business, but that if you change things around, hopefully you don't just cut all those people off, but find a new place for them to bring value to the company. That's a hard undertaking, though, I'm sure. Interestingly, Ford did have a lot of price changes, significant price changes as well, announced in early January of this year. There were price increases between $2,000 and $7,500 depending on the trim for the F-150 Lightning. There was also a $5,000 decrease for the Platinum trim, though. So the base Pro trim was increased about $5,000. The base XLT was increased $7,500. The Flash trim was increased $3,500. The Lariat was increased $2,000, and the Platinum and Platinum Black, like I said, was reduced $5,000. However, Ford then turned around and offered $5,000 to $12,500 in price cuts, depending on the model. So interesting strategy to increase the price and then offer incentives. So perhaps, it's a bit of that customer psychology where people walk in and they see large number discounts, $12,500 off, even if it's largely offset by price hikes. Of course, you have to consider the tax incentives that may or may not be available because there is that cutoff around $80,000, I believe, for the SUVs and truck EVs to receive any tax incentives. So starting in February, last month, actually, starting on February 9th, there was a stop sale on Ford F-150s, not only the Lightnings, but also the internal combustion engine F-150s. And just wanted to address this briefly because I have gotten some questions just in my personal life as well. What happened there? So it was an undisclosed quality issue. There was a stop sale for a couple of weeks, but they started shipment again just 10 days later on February 19th. So it seemed to be something that affected the F-150 line, not specific to EVs, not specific to the internal combustion engines, but an undisclosed quality issue that was then fixed. Clearing that up. The Mustang Mach-E. Moving on to their other EV offering. Of course, they offer the Ford E-Transit, but that's more of a commercial vehicle, that delivery van. But the Mustang Mach-E, another passenger vehicle and popular electric vehicle, especially for early adopters. So in 2023, the Mach-E was the second best-selling EV crossover behind the Model Y. However, it's not all good news, as total sales in January of this year, 2024, fell over 11% year over year. They also saw huge price cuts for the Mach-E in February, between $3,100 and $8,100 decrease depending on the trim. So how does this all round up? Actually, some positive news. The price cuts seem to be helping. February was much more positive than January, with an 80% growth year over year. And the Mach-E sales were up last month by over 60%, and the F-150 Lightning sales up by nearly 100%, and the E-Transit up by over 100%. So overall, Ford sales were up 10%, largely helped by hybrids, but also by EVs. Very interesting. Did you happen to buy a Ford EV product this year in 2024? I'd love to hear if you did and why you did and what you're using it for, especially if it happens to be an E-Transit and you are outfitting a fleet. I think that would be really interesting to hear about. And of course, Ford drivers will be the first ones to receive the Tesla adapters, is what you can call them, or the J3400, the North American Charging Standard 2 CCS adapters, and be able to charge on the Supercharger network. We've covered this. We're going to continue to cover it. And Kyle was the first, if not one of the first people to plug a non-Tesla EV into the Tesla Supercharger network and have it work. It just worked right off the bat. So definitely check out that video on the Out of Spec Reviews channel. This is really exciting. All Ford owners will receive one for free. It's one adapter for one VIN, and you need to sign up in the Ford app with your Ford account or online to make sure you get on the list to receive your adapter. And I have talked to Ford customers. They all know about it. Every Mach-E that I've seen knows about it. I haven't spoken to any just Lightning owners that I've run into yet, but people are really excited about this. And I know that it is bringing huge value to Ford customers. The timeline is unclear of exactly when people will get their adapters or when the network will just be fully open. We're rolling it out, but in the next few weeks for sure. In March, I know that some people are saying that they won't get their adapter for a little bit, but coming soon at least is what we're expecting. So let me know. Give me any updates about your adapters in the comments as well. Some have already been shipped and tested, of course, and this is pretty good news. I think it's definitely going to change the way that public charging occurs, and we'll be interested to see how other automakers coming onto the Supercharger network and charging their EVs will go as well. We'll keep you all updated on that. That is a bit of an update on Ford. I think they're a super interesting automaker to watch in this space because their approach, it seems to be pretty successful, I would say. And although there have been delays in investment and re-strategization, that's a hard word for me today. I think that there's a lot of potential there. Just the fact that they're getting their customers onto the Tesla Supercharger network first speaks volumes, in my opinion. Let me know what you think of Ford's advancement in the electrification of their lineup. What would you like to see electrified next? They have a pretty, I think, solid offering. The Mustang, the Lightning, and the E-Transit seem to cover a lot of use cases. What else would you like to see from them? More trucks, more passenger vehicles, more SUVs, crossovers? Let me know. Thank you for plugging in with me for another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time on the next episode. Bye, y'all.